Alright, I'm gonna be repairing this scratch right here on the tail lights. The first thing you want to do when repairing spots like this is use a Dremel tool and clean out the edges, take off all the broken areas. Try not to get it much wider than it is, but actually clean the edges, you know, open up the hole. Now the boat is kind of moving and I don't want to take it too deep, so I'm just going to use a piece of sandpaper because the boat is not stable right now because of the waves. So I'm just using a piece of sandpaper and I'm opening up the edges and cleaning out all the broken pieces. And after I clean that out, I will use a piece of block with a piece of 220 on the rest of the surface. So now that I've cleaned out those areas for repair, I sand the outer surface. I try to keep my repair as small as possible. So I start off with that. I'm gonna glaze that with some putty, and after I sand the putty, I will open it up, probably add another eighth on either side, and then I will apply primer. And then after primer, I may open it up another eighth again, so it gets wider and wider every application that I do. And by the time I do the final with the painting, I may extend it up to 1.25 inches, probably for the most. I try to keep it as small as possible. So I'm gonna be using this lightweight filler made by 3M, and I'm gonna be applying it to those spots over there. Usually it's good to let those product air out at least overnight, but this is an emergency repair. Today is Monday, the boat goes out on Wednesday, so I only got Monday and Tuesday to do this repair. So that means I got to apply the filler today, let it air out for at least 3-4 hours, and then apply primer over it. That's the only way it's gonna get done. And then on Tuesday apply paint. So I applied the lightweight putty on all the scratches, all that area that needed the repair, and I'm gonna let that dry. It dries pretty fast, 15-20 minutes. I should be able to sand it and apply some more if necessary. So it's been about 20 minutes since I put on the putty, and now I'm sanding it with a small block with 120 just to break the surface. I start off with 120 and then I'm gonna move to 220, and by then I will know if I need to apply a little more filler. So always use a block, PVC block. So I've sanded my putty, and if you look closely you could see that I take it all the way down where I actually burn through the paint. Where I could see that gray you see is primer from the original painting. So I take it down a notch where I burn through the paint and I could see primer. So now I'm gonna clean that area and apply my primer and give it probably 2 or 3 layers of primer. So I could cut that tomorrow starting with a 220 and then down to 320, and just feather my edges nice and clean. and then shoot my paint. So now my surface is ready for painting. I mix 1 part of the 545 gray base primer to 1 part of the 545 converter. It's 1 to 1, and I do not need a whole lot, so I just mix in a small water bottle. So I mix just a little bit, and then I'm gonna pour this in my little roll tray and use a roller and roll the primer on and give it about 3 coats so I could sand tomorrow. This is how it goes. I gotta let that sit for at least 15 minutes before I apply it. So today is day 2 and we're gonna sand the primer. I'm gonna start with a block sander with 220 grit sandpaper, and then I'm gonna finish it up with 320 sandpaper and feather out my edges. So I opened up my tip line about another 1/8 on either side so I could feather my edges. So the repair keeps growing. Every time you apply stuff, you gotta open it up to feather the edges. Okay, that's where we are right now. After sanding this down with 220, then 320, then 400 grit sandpaper, you want to remove all the excess paint that is on the existing painted surface and try to keep your primer only over the repairs. So what I did, I removed, carefully sanding off all that excess primer over the existing painted surface. That way I will get a better blend when I do the final finish. So now I'm gonna spread the tip another 1/8 all the way around and hit that extra outer surface with 600 grit sandpaper, just to help me get that even blend. So really and truly, that's where my repair was, right in that center area, my repair on. So I don't really need primer over the gray, so I remove all that primer. Carefully do that with a sanding block. This is my sanding block right here, small PVC sanding block, and that's the only way to achieve good results, is by block sanding it all the way. So my surface is cleaned and ready for painting, and as some precaution, I've papered around my painted area. Although my Fuji spray machine don't really give me overspray, but as a precautionary measure, I add some layers of paper just for safety. So I'm gonna fire up my machine and get it ready for spraying. Small job, but this is the amount of stuff I got to bring in order to get this small job done. This is my repair kit. One has all my paint supplies in there. Number 2, sandpaper and everything else in this one. Number 3, all the bits and pieces. This is my Fuji spray system. It's in this box, so it's very much mobile on wheels. And in this box I got all my spray guns, cups and everything in this box. So I gotta take all that to the job in order to get this small job done. So lots of details in doing those repair work. Get me ready for spraying and I'll show you the results. So I just got my first application on, and if you could look closely, I dialed my gun all the way down where I could actually zoom in on just the primed area. So I only got a coat on the prime surface only. I'm gonna wait for 10-15 minutes, give it another layer only on the primed area, the repaired area, and then I'm gonna just open my gun a little wider and get one coat over the gray, existing gray surface, and I'm done. That's it. Okay, so we sprayed 3 coats over this, and this is what it looked like. So tomorrow I will pull the tapes, take off all that paper, pull the tapes and buff the edges, and that would be it for this repair. Looks like a pretty good blend. Kenny's Yacht Maintenance, working smarter, not harder. Okay, this is my finish results, and hey, you could barely see it. Barely see the repair. Barely see it. The owner is happy, captain is happy, and I am happy. Kenny's Yacht Maintenance, working smarter, not harder.
Have it, we have tried.